America. My God, Stephen Colbert, what was your reaction to that?
I was shocked. I really was. But this is what an authoritarian government does. This is what they do. They try to silence the artists. They try to silence the truth tellers. They took all of these amazing pundits off the television, Terry Moran, Jim Acosta. And, once ABC and CBS gave in to the bribery, gave in to the blackmail that Trump threatened them with lawsuits that were bogus, and they gave him millions of dollars. As soon as that happened, they're done.
Rosie O'Donnell doesn't walk quietly into this roast. She storms like a big thundercloud over a cheap fare. Donald Trump, full of bragging and bluster, becomes her main target. The battle is completely one-sided, like a balloon trying to fight a wrecking ball. And Melania isn't safe either. She once tried to present herself as classy and mysterious, but Rosie tears that down too, showing her as more of a background decoration in the wild circus America had to watch. Rosie makes sure her jokes cut deep and make everyone laugh hard.
Unreal. And for me, in 2006, when he was just a embarrassment in New York, nobody respected him in any way. Forbes never would put him on the richest people list because they couldn't verify his income because he was often broke. He's a con man, period. And if you grew up in New York like I did, you knew that. But he got on that show, and Mark Burnett, the producer, taught him that if you tell a lie long enough on TV, people will believe it, just how they...
Rosie's first attack is on Trump's love for his own image. She points out how he constantly needs people to praise him, as if he can't even put his shoes on without hearing applause first. She makes fun of how he walks around like a beauty pageant contestant, but instead of talking about world peace, he just brags about crowd sizes, golf scores, and TV ratings. She says his time as president was nothing more than a rerun of a boring reality show, and even the reruns were getting fewer viewers. Rosie digs in deeper, calling his obsession with admiration empty and silly, making him look more like a mall Santa begging for attention than a real leader.
Yes.
Anyway, long story short, Trump went to sue CBS, isn't that right?
Yes, because of an interview on 60 Minutes where he didn't like the way he was edited or that Kamala Harris was edited.
So even though the legal team thought he'd win, they still paid out $16 million, and Stephen Colbert basically said it was a bribe.
Which it was.
Yeah.
And
3 days later...
Yes, because that's what he has the power now to demand that people lose their jobs, to call out private citizens like myself or like Bruce Springsteen, who spoke out very eloquently about him as well. And this is what they do. They try to silence people, and they put the fear of God in everyone that they're going to lose their job.
Then Rosie goes after his business empire, the famous Golden Towers and shady deals. She says those shiny buildings aren't proof of success. Instead, they're big monuments to debt, bankruptcies, and his fragile ego. She laughs at how he puts his name in huge letters on everything, as if bright lights could hide the fact that so many of his businesses fall apart quickly, like a house of cards in strong wind. To her, the name Trump doesn't mean success. It's more like a warning label for bad deals and worse decisions.
He has been a mystery to me from the moment I was conscious of him as a young child, when all his planes were getting repossessed off the runways at LaGuardia, when he was trying to sell steaks and cologne. And, because, Warren Buffett always does that, right? All the billionaires do that. No, he's the only one because he's a con man. That's the bottom line.
And he hasn't stopped. I mean, he's still flogging this, that, and the other.
In defiance of the Constitution. He's selling things from the office. He's taking money and
Rosie doesn't stop with Trump. She turns to Melania and breaks down her carefully built image of elegance. She jokes about those stiff photo ops where Melania stares into space like she's stuck in a bad soap opera. Rosie reminds everyone how Melania's speeches copied lines from Michelle Obama, making her seem less like an original First Lady and more like a copy-and-paste project. Even her Be Best Kindness campaign becomes part of Rosie's jokes. Rosie points out how strange it was for the wife of a loudest online bully in politics to lead an anti-bullying program.
Well, he is a cruel, criminal, and mentally unstable man. And Duty to Warn was a book that came out when he was first in office. Psychiatrists across the country who don't ever really diagnose people that they don't serve personally came together and made a book, Duty to Warn, to tell the world what a narcissistic, mentally ill person.
Rosie goes further. saying Melania's rare public appearances don't look like leadership moments. They look more like hostage videos. She calls out the idea that Melania is mysterious, instead saying she seems bored and distant, happier decorating Christmas trees than talking about real issues. Rosie jokes that if Melania had her way, she'd replace the national anthem with elevator music just to get through events faster. Then Rosie swings back to Trump, mocking his Twitter rants that sound like a teenager upset after prom. She paints him as a man so hooked on tweeting that his whole legacy could fit into hashtags and spelling mistakes. She laughs at how he treated his online meltdowns like official announcements. Instead of solving problems, he spent his nights fighting critics online, acting more like a grumpy neighbor yelling at squirrels than a president.
Oh my gosh, it has. I feel on the verge of crying when I was there, when he got elected. I luckily had a plan with my therapist. Hope she's watching. Hi, Ann. And I said to her, should he be elected, which none of us thought was going to happen, I need a plan. And the plan was always and only Ireland. My grandparents are from here.
When Rosie aims at his ego, she doesn't hold back. She compares Trump's need for constant praise to a toddler demanding gold stars for scribbles. She says his rallies aren't real political events. They're like therapy sessions where the crowd cheers to keep him from crying. She points out how every speech is the same, long, messy, full of bragging about things that didn't happen and whining about enemies he imagines. Rosie also jokes about his family life, saying Melania stands beside him like a statue while he celebrates himself. Their marriage looks less like a true partnership and more like a contract they renew every few years. When she circles back to Melania, she highlights all the contradictions. Her anti-bullying campaign, her cold distance, and her public comments that sound like press statements rather than real feelings. All of this becomes comedy gold in Rosie's hands.
You've left America.
Yes.
Because of what's been going on.
Because of him. I read Project 2025. That was pretty much the foundation of what he wanted to do. And I said, I have to get out of here. And I left before the inauguration on purpose because for 20 years he's been using me as a punchline in all of his jokes.
I know.
And he's a very unbalanced individual. And it's very dangerous to be in...
Rosie mocks how Melania can say so much without actually talking. Her appearances are full of posed silences that do nothing to make the chaos around Trump look better. Rosie laughs at how hard it is to keep a dignified image while being tied to the loudest man in America. But Rosie's roast isn't just about personalities, it's about politics too. She slams Trump's record as president, the endless scandals, the constant resignations, and the non-stop controversies. She makes fun of how he bragged about his achievements while everything behind him was falling apart, as if repeating a lie could magically turn failure into victory. Rosie builds up to a strong finish by tearing down Trump's so-called legacy. She shows how what was once hyped as historic turned into a giant parody. To her, his presidency looked like a traveling comedy show where incompetence was the main act and scandals were the supporting cast.
And I think he's the worst thing that ever happened to the United States. And his cruelty knows no bounds. And when he is upset and humiliated and embarrassed, he has no control and he goes apeshit. Can I say that? And, you know, he is the kind of person that is a grifter. And he is an evangelical preacher to people who believe that Celebrity Apprentice was true. And
Rosie tells everyone that history won't remember Donald Trump as a serious leader. He'll be remembered like a jester, a clown in the court of history, not a hero in the books. His time in office won't be known for real policies, but for endless punchlines. Comedians had a buffet of material thanks to his mistakes. Late-night shows, meme creators, and sketch writers thrived because of him. Trump wanted to build monuments, but Rosie says what he really built was a massive comedy archive, a digital museum where his rants, gaffes, and meltdowns will replay forever. She also makes it clear Melania won't be remembered for leading or inspiring. She'll be remembered for her frozen poses and distant eyes, perfecting the art of looking detached.
out there, because he had a press conference right before we were live where he had a teenager, Tara O'Connor, who was Miss Teen USA, she had kissed a girl in the village, and they took a picture and put it on all the newspapers. And he made her do a press conference where she apologized, and it looked to me like a pimp and a prostitute. And I said that on the air, and then I proceeded to list facts, not hyperbole, just facts about who he was and what he did. Bankrupt all these times, money from his father, not a self-made man, can't quantify his riches on Forbes magazine. I just said facts, and you would think that I called his mother a...
Rosie explains that Melania's time as First Lady will be remembered for her silence, her fancy outfits, and the constant look that she'd rather be anywhere else. Rosie describes Melania as someone who mastered the trick of being physically present but mentally checked out. She laughs at those staged family photos meant to show unity, pointing out how they looked more like ads for awkwardness. Every Christmas card, handshake, and forced smile was proof. Melania wasn't really a partner in leadership. She was more like a prop rolled out to pretend everything was normal while chaos exploded around her. The circus atmosphere spread everywhere. TV, tabloids, and social media across the world.
I had an interaction on television where I talked about him in 2006, and I made fun of his hair and did what comedians have been doing for years. And he went really crazy. He just could not get himself to get over it for over 20 years. And he uses me as a punching line and disparages me and insults me and calls me names like it's a kid in school and I'm being teased. But when I talked about him, he was not the president. He was a reality show host, and he was a little bit of a joke in New York, where I grew up. If you grew up in New York, you watched his planes get repossessed off the runways at LaGuardia. You watched him grift everyone with this steak business and a fake university that he got sued for. And so nobody really took him seriously in 2000.
Rosie says this was a time when politics and entertainment became the same thing. Governing took a back seat to self-promotion, and dignity was traded for sound bites. Her final hits are sharp and clear. She rips apart the image Trump tried to build, the great deal-maker, the strong leader, and leaves behind only the picture of a salesman trying to sell a product no one wanted. His promises vanished quickly. His slogans became boring from repetition. His speeches became jokes before they even ended. Rosie calls him a fraud made up of ego and showmanship. She also calls out Melania's silence, the emptiness of her campaigns, and how she floated above the chaos without ever stepping in to change anything. To Rosie, Melania's biggest act wasn't leadership. It was disappearing while pretending to be graceful.
4 years when he was in last time, it was not a good time for me. And I have a little child who's 12 who has autism, and I have to be on top of my game. I have to be mentally and emotionally there and present. And I didn't want to be distracted by him or have him play such a major role in my reality. So I said, where could I go? And this was the only choice for me.
Yeah.
And we've had really the most amazing welcome. It's the most beautiful place. And my daughter said, I like it better here than in there.
By the end of this roast, Rosie has destroyed every illusion. Trump is shown as a shallow performer, a man whose legacy is built on show, not substance. Melania is exposed too, not as mysterious, but as an accessory in the performance, a mannequin standing still while everything collapsed around her. Together, Rosie says they were the strangest duo in modern political history. And the real tragedy isn't just the scandals or embarrassment. It's that the country had to sit through their act at all. Trump and Melania leave the stage not as admired leaders, but as symbols of vanity and mockery. Rosie's final verdict is sharp, brutal, and clear.